And then 6 weeks rolls through. We have a day to get our act together, and we get picked up by a Uber with the medical badge in the window, and we drive through the border and took a right down the wall, follow the wall for about 30, 40 minutes, take a left, go to the top of this hill, and there's this beautiful Airbnb mansion looking over the cliffs at the Pacific Ocean. So it was really, really pretty place. Wasn't very far, quick, less than an hour drive. Security was fine. I get out of the van with my suitcase and the other 3 guys that were with me, walk up to the steps leading into the Ambio house there. And Trevor was such a nice guy, had a big smile on his face, and I could just feel the peacefulness and the embrace. Miss Ruby.
Ruby's fantastic.
Ruby's amazing. Jose and those folks are all awesome. She was my guide for 5-MeO experience that I had and everything else. But that conversation that we had with Jose chilling in the back of the 5-MeO blast off was out of this world. I don't get to that. You got to hear it. But so I show up down in Ambio.
Before you go on, what did you look into when he said psychedelics in Mexico? What were your thoughts before you went down?
Thanks for bringing me back. I said, what's myrrh? And then I'm like, and what's this Ibogaine? I didn't understand what he was saying. He goes, I think it's called Ibogaine, Iboga. And I'm like, what? So I'm immediately Googling the daylights out of this. And I get a little bit of information to come up. There wasn't a whole lot of information out there. I found more information on DMT, not necessarily 5-MeO DMT, but different types of DMT. There was a bit of information in some books and stuff that had been written, but there wasn't a whole lot of Ibogaine information available at the time, except for Sean Ryan's interview of Trevor after he had come back and started talking about his psychedelic journey. And then his wife interviewed him and asked questions about him and what's improved and what this and that. And I thought that was a great way to get my wife on board because believe me, that's the hardest part at the beginning of all this. The guys that knew me before that have ran into me since, they know for a fact now, because it's been 3 years, that the shit works. The shit being this amazing medicine found in a small region of Cameroon in the Gabon region of the Congo, of all places. None of us are going to make it down there alive. We're not going to get there and get some medicine and get out of there alive. Not going to happen. Jonathan can do it. Trevor can do it because they have decades of experience working with the Bitwitty tribe, but I never in the wildest dreams would have ever uncovered this medicine on my own. So my buddy brought up the word Ibogaine and I'm immediately digging and I can't find much about it. I'm like, well, check it out. It's drinking time. We're wasting my drinking time. So you have permission from now until the day I tell you to quit to talk to my wife. And if you can fill her in when you get back to the board on whatever this Ibogaine stuff is, and you can convince her that I can go do this and it's going to help, I'll go do it. But I'm not going to do it if she's not on board because I was forecasting the arguing that was going to take place with me hanging out in Del Mar of all places while she's back here with all the kids in the beach of Northwest Florida.
Doing psychedelics, right?
Yeah, I'm doing drugs, hanging out with all these rich billionaires in Del Mar. It's such a great time. I'm healing, right? So I knew that was going to be an issue. And I'm glad I, for some reason, had the foresight to say it like that too, because we went back to doing our usual weekend together, hanging out on the beach and drinking beer and sharing the same sad stories that we used to always bring up. And he comes back down summer vacation now. So fast forward to the summer vacation, same year, 2022. And he's back down visiting with his daughters and my girls and his girls are playing and we're sitting around and I'm like, okay, so what's up? Did you guys chit chat at all? What's up? Yes. Jen, you want to tell them? We think you can do it. You can go do it. You need to do this. Fine. I'm doing it. Now what? Well, you're going to be on the first team and you need to fill all this shit out and you need to get a hold of Mike and Jeremy and this and that. And that started the ball. So that's how it all began. I didn't really know what to expect. And I just told Mike and my wife, I was like, I'm doing this. I'm going to go all in. So I'm going to start digging. I'm going to start researching. I'm going to start finding out every single thing I can possibly find out so I can G2 the shit out of this before I go down to Mexico. Because I just need to know what I can find out to get a solid, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. But there just wasn't a ton of information out there. And I didn't have Trevor's phone number at this point. So it's just digging and digging and digging. And a lot of guys, there was very few guys out there openly talking about it because they were scared, worried because they were still active duty or they were working for different 3-letter agencies or this and that. And it's not legal here, but they're healed up. And all it would basically say that the majority that I could reach out to were like, just do it. All I can tell you is prepare your mind. You're going to come clean with yourself. You got to let it all go, bro. Don't fight it. The worst thing you could possibly do is go down there and try to muscle your way through the shit. Because once you start, you're not going to stop until it's done. And if you don't do it the way I'm telling you, it's going to be horrible. And I said, okay, I get it. I think. So thankfully, being a part of the study, I had two coaches. I would get a call from two different people once a week. One I considered the coach was a female. I'll just call her Cheryl. Cheryl would call me predominantly from a place in Puerto Vallarta. It's an all women's retreat to heal their trauma. The sitters, guides, everybody there is a woman, and the women, the patients are all women. So it's a safe setting for what they have to deal with and go through. But they're predominantly using psilocybin and ayahuasca at those retreats. So she had never done Ibogaine, but she had 6 different journeys with ayahuasca. And the first 3 weeks, roughly 2.5, 3 weeks, I was like, okay, great. Thank you. I mean, I was polite. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't know how to compute what she was saying. And she caught on to it because the 3rd week, she's like, so tell me about your intentions. Let's start with that. Like, my intentions are I'm going to go down to Mexico with an open heart and receive whatever I'm going to receive. And she's like, what? That's not anything that I explained for that I needed you to do for homework. And I go, yeah, well, that's what I got. I was sort of flippant, right? And she goes, let me explain something to you about the medicine that you're going to go partake in. It is not identical to ayahuasca, but the methodologies and the preparation and the things that you're going to do that you should be doing that you probably are not doing right now save you a lot of pain and heartache and introspection when you're done with your first journey. You can prepare the right way, or you can just wing it, Scott. But let me tell you a little bit more about me, and maybe this will get you to listen. Tells me her sad, horrible story. She was left by her family, basically. She worked on the streets, drugs, a lot of rapes, thought she was done for, period. A friend of hers found her, got her out of that, got her to go do this retreat in Puerto Vallarta and changed her life for the better. She became completely sober. She forgave all the things that had happened to her. She learned all the things that you learn through those journeys on how to express yourself in different ways and handle all those triggers and you know, the way that we protect ourselves through fear and trauma and building walls with your that is trying to protect you in some ways, but it's also destroying you in others. I was dealing with mine in the worst way, just feeding it alcohol. But she got me to understand intentions. So I started writing them out. I started with a long list, probably 30 or 40 deep. And I would share that with her. She gave me the green light to call her whenever I felt like it, because she laughed eventually after she gave me this good tongue lashing. I needed it. That's how I would pay attention and listen in my younger days. I took it to heart. You know, I had a little empathy in me at that point. I'm like, okay, I'll go all in with this too. So intentions became important. Fast forward about 3 more months, I had it ironed out to like 10, a good, hard, steady, difficult to confess to myself. You know, I had to tell myself, yeah, you do have problems, brother. And here they are, the real ones. I adjusted it 1 or 2 more times while I was at MBO, the days leading up to the journey taking off. But we started there. Okay. The intentions. The other phone call that I would get once a week was from a psychiatrist or therapist in Colorado Springs. And it was a gentleman, we'll just call him Steve, super smart. He had done a journey with Ibogaine for, 20 some odd hours. And he reiterated what Cheryl, the intentions. And the second most important thing that he figured would help Scotty would be understanding the methodologies and behind meditating with breath. Because I was so strung before, if you had talked to me, it would be a lot different. There'd be a lot of, military jargon and creative ways to say things with foul language and just an array of this dude's suffering. He has no idea how bad he is suffering, but he's suffering. And I used humor and this and that and crazy, jibber jabber to keep people laughing, but I was definitely struggling. And he could hear it over the phone, I think, because he's like, you need to master as quickly as we can in the next couple months. You got about 3 months you've got to listen to what I am saying. You have got to make 5 minutes for breathing every day. And then once you get that comfortable in your battle rhythm, in your day-to-day routine, you need to incorporate that every time you feel you're about to lose it. Before you lose it and embarrass yourself in front of your family, just tell everybody you got to take a minute. You need 5 minutes. That's all. And go to your closet, your bathroom, go to the bathroom, whatever, and breathe. And I want you to breathe in 4, hold it for 2-3 seconds, exhale 6, and at the bottom, hold it for 2-3 seconds. And I adjusted the time and the exhale as I got more comfortable with it. Fast forward to the journey, I'm in the middle, probably like 18 hours into it. I finally hear everybody around me, because the gentleman to my left puked almost the whole time. Well, he dry heaves.
Yeah.
He had a really bad drinking problem, and he was learning not to drink anymore. And his prep was very limited. Brian and I are still good friends. He's an amazing human. He's got a really cool life story. I'll try and send him your way if you want to talk to him one day. He's sober, he's happy, and listening to him next to me the whole night was part of the journey. I mean, we were sucking together. It was amazing. But the thing I wanted to mention was around that 18-hour mark is when I realized I had to pee. And it was like, boom, I came back to the room. I dropped my mask. I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom. And they're like, okay, can you move your legs yet? And I was like, barely. And I'm just an amoeba of Scotty moving around, right? And they helped me get situated. I drained my bladder and I went right back into it. Gone.
Great.
And in that moment that I had, I was, so is everybody good here? How's it been going? I did okay. I don't know, but I passed yet? And the doc, the 2 MDs rotated. She looked down and she goes, you're doing very good. You're staying very calm. You're breathing. You're letting it do its magic. She's like, not magic, but you're letting the medicine, you're not fighting it. You're staying calm. You're breathing. She's like, he almost stops breathing. And I'm like, oh, that's because I have CPAP, but it was more controlled. It wasn't like I was gasping for air. So I think, to this day, I did it. I did the training. I did the breathing work enough to make it become accessible in that state of mind. And I'm telling you, the visions were out of control. They started out sort of flash in and out, but eventually, when I pulled my mask down, because I started seeing, things distorted, and my environment in that meditation room was starting to move to a different, like I was splitting dimensions. It was crazy. I remember, don't forget to start your stopwatch, Scotty. Don't forget, because I was still trying to control everything.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I tried to convince them to let me film myself. They're like, absolutely not. Can't do it. It's medical stuff. I'm like, okay, I get it. HIPAA, got it. But I can do this. So I started my stopwatch and pulled my mask down, laid back. The bit witty tribal music's blasting, my heart's racing. I'm trying to make sense of what is being shown to me with my eyes behind a mask, behind my sleep mask. And I just see this bright green grid. It reminded me of the movie Tron. I see a giant grid below me. It's green, bright green. And I'm looking at it. And the next thing you know, I felt my whole body just go, and I'm flying. Okay.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking straight down on this grid and I'm going hundreds of miles an hour flying. I'm like, this is awesome. And I remember like trying to look up so I could see if I'm going to hit something. And I look up through my eyes and I'm like, oh my God, there's a wall. And I see the green grid go to the wall and I'm like, gonna hit it. And I'm preparing to hit something. And next thing you know, I blast up that wall, through the ceiling, out of the structure, and I'm in outer space. And I'm floating around. I can't hear anything, but I can breathe. And I realize that I'm like, this is bullshit. You don't need a spacesuit. You can breathe in outer space. Oh my, that means there's got to be more things out here. And I'm trying to maneuver, but I don't know how to spin around in space. And that's when I started hearing this humming noise kicking in. And I didn't hear any more tribal music. I didn't hear any more of my Brian puking. All I heard just this humming getting louder and louder and louder. And then I saw what I thought was like a demon or something. And we were taught you can swipe if you can
Right.
still move your arms, try to move to the next page and address that later. And I couldn't get anything to shift. It looked like a wheel, sort of. It had all different types of like symbology and stuff on it. I did not know what it was. And I didn't talk about it for a little bit. I don't know, a few weeks after I got back, I started trying to make sense of things and I explained it to my wife. Eventually, fast forward to about 7 months ago, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri at a retreat doing stem cell therapy. And I'm sharing this story with a gentleman that's at this retreat who happens to be my buddy's pastor and spiritual guide as he's been going through his post therapy. He's gotten super spiritual. And I'm sharing my story with this preacher, and his wife's with him, and she starts to tear up. And I'm like, man, I am really sorry. Did I say something that upset your wife? No, just keep talking. And I share the wheel. And as I'm explaining in great detail, Jen's over here typing in all this information on her phone. And she goes, honey, look at this. And I look, I'm like, it's that. And it was an ophanum,
I don't know what that is.
biblical angel. They don't fly around with wings like Tinkerbell. They are like the wheels in Ezekiel.
Okay, okay.
They are these monolithic. I don't know how to explain other than what I saw and the research that I've dug. It was super powerful, and I was scared out of my mind, thinking that oh, this is one of the demon things, I guess, that's gonna test me or something. But it came in and it moved in such a way like it was like inverting into itself, and the eyes weren't blinking or anything. They're steady, and then those were like folding into itself in a an eagle would pop out, and it would look like it's staring at me, but it's not. I didn't know the wings weren't flapping and stuff like that, and it just kept rotating into itself and folding into itself and coming back out. But it was clearly wheels within wheels, and I try to draw it out with AI, and it's pretty close to what I can remember seeing. So I did some digging into that realm. That led to writing a couple essays, which led to digging into more into the spiritual side and what are ophanim and how did those come into that state of mind? Why was that brought up? What was I supposed to learn from it or whatnot? Going back to that first year post therapy, all I could do was just tell people I was sorry, like, and I would break down and cry. I couldn't control my empathy. I used to have zero, and then I had way too much.
Like, what do I
So I would
do?
run into somebody at a grocery store that I hadn't seen in a long time, like a friend of mine that was a detective with the local law enforcement. Scott, how are you? Oh my God. He's still fired up, you know? And I'm standing there like, good, man. How are you? I'm good. How are you, man? You look so calm and happy. What's going on? Where you been? I'm like, yeah, dude, I did this study that helped me a lot. And if you ever want to talk about it, just shoot me a text and we can go get some coffee and talk about it. But it's just too in detail. I cannot skip
Right.
details on this thing. You got to hear the whole story. I said, but I'm sober. And I went to some dimensions that are out there that you don't know about that are real, that you can go take care of some stuff. I had conversation with my dad. He died a couple, before this journey. He had passed away from alcoholism, and he and I had a falling out in '05, and I wrote him off. I didn't want him around my kids, nothing. He passed in a home for destitute folks out there in Oregon. My sisters were there, my younger brother was there, and my stepmom, they were all there. I didn't make a visit. And part of it was, inconvenient. I have 5 kids. 3 of them are well, 2 of them are in college. One's about to start. 2 are still young, 10, 11. I'm not going to spend $1,000 to fly there and back and spend a couple days to hang out with my dad who didn't give a shit about me in my mind at that time, right?
Sure, sure.
I wasn't expecting anything to resolve the issues between my father and I until I see him sitting in a recliner. I got to hang out with him. I'll be all right. I got to hang out with him for like, it seemed like an hour or 2, but it was probably 15 or 30 minutes based on the conversation that I can recall. But I just remember seeing him with his legs up in his old brown recliner back when he was fun. I would go see him on summer vacations, and he loved to water ski and stuff. And so I was visiting with him when I remember him being his happiest, and he wasn't, addicted to alcohol. He wasn't being a jerk to everybody. He wasn't telling my younger sister and younger brother horrible shit that he was saying to them, as he was progressing into alcoholism and saying hurtful, mean things that you can't take back. And then I felt like I had to be the father figure or the mature of the oldest boy with the father who's jacked up. And that just led to resentment and personal issues. Like I didn't ever want to talk about them, and I just try to block them off.
Right, right.
So I'm having a discussion with them, and it came out 100% natural. I just told him, I always want you to know I always loved you and just wish you were here, but I forgive you. And then I just felt everything lift, all the sadness, and I felt really good. And then I looked at him, and he goes, I'm really proud of you. I'm really, really proud that you could do this and that you said you're breaking. I'm very proud of you, and I'm happy that you have broke the cycle. And I'm telling you what I felt was real. Oh, so real, which made me go digging further down. What was this feeling for? And then I started understanding more about entanglement. And I 100% believe, and I wrote a little bit about it in my book, there is definitely a connection between the trauma you're holding, resentment that you're holding, because you just can't open up. You just cannot talk about it until you clear your slate, so to speak. And until I found the healing I found through Ibogaine and 5-MeO, I never, ever would have been able to picture that conversation taking place in such a way that I felt every ounce of emotion and forgiveness and never thought bad about him ever since. Now my discussions about him were like, he was struggling and he had a lot to deal with. He did his best, and I think he made amends with whoever he needed to make amends with before his passing. And if you didn't get a chance to say goodbye, you'll see him again someday because we're all going to the same place. And that was another thing. I was never really scared to die. I saw enough death and loss with all those deployments. But after coming home from the Ibogaine journey, what I saw was confirmed in my mind because of my 5-MeO experience. So as I went through the Ophanim, one showed up from the right as I was embracing it. I couldn't get it to swipe away. It got closer and it was just this machine of stuff going so like geometry doesn't explain the way this thing was moving. And the feeling wasn't like it was staring at me or judging me. It was more you're here. We know everything. It's time to release. You gotta you gotta acknowledge, basically. So it was, I'm here, I'm present, acknowledge all the stuff that I had to go through, and now I'm gonna stand up and handle it. And it's time to embrace um like forgiveness and you're still a pipe hitter. You're still a great shooter. Still this, you're still that, but it's not that. It's not this daily 20% or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If for whatever reason, hopefully never, you might need to whip out your bag of tricks, you'll still be able to do it. But how about you focus on being an awesome dad, a fun, loving, caring husband, a great neighbor, somebody that can sacrifice 6 hours in front of his Xbox to go help out at the school or the church or, there's tons of life out there that you can have fun with while you're still here in this dimension or home where you're at currently. Because I know there's so many other places. I never could have put my mind into that headspace and timing before the journey. The gray day that you go through when you are able to get up and move a little bit, they helped me get down to my room downstairs and I was out. And I would go in and out. I'd go in and out. I was in the spirit, in and out of my journey for 37 hours.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yes, it was. Pretty sure my dosages were I took 4 big red pills. The first one at the fireside ceremony, second upstairs an hour later at 9 o'clock, the third 15 minutes after that, and the fourth 15 minutes after that. So 9:30, I had all 4 doses in my system, and it was around 10:30, 10:40 when I hit the start button on my watch, and I started going and dealing with everything.
Were you the last one in the room?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The other 2 gentlemen that were with me, yeah, they were both downstairs by the time I got up. I think I was upstairs for, like, 20 hours-ish, and then back to my room. I remember I couldn't stay awake for very long. I was pretty nauseous. I didn't throw up. I didn't puke at all during my time upstairs with, hooked up to DKG and everything. I was thirsty. I just remember waking up every so often and magically there would be a paleo chef handing me this wonderful smoothie. Drink this, Scotty. You'll be better. And I would suck some of it down and then boom, I'd pass back out. The last cool waking up moment during that time, during my gray day, was the Reiki. She was messing around with my hand. I was asleep or dreaming. I was still kind of going in and out of the medicine, but I remember feeling something on my hand and I'm in my bed and my arm's up here and she's looking because I got shot in this hand and missing some of my pinky and stuff. She's looking at my hand and she's just doing this and this. And then I remember waking up and I looked at her, I'm like, is everything okay? And she goes, quit being so mean to yourself.
Aw.
And I was like, "Okay." Grabbed my pillow and tried to figure out what the heck that meant, and because she said it in such a way like she was definitely checking out my energy. So I put that in my note taking material that I got from Vets Inc. and passed back out again. Eventually, it was pretty late that night. I eventually got up, took a shower, changed into some different jammies, sweats and a t-shirt, and then I was pretty much back to sleeping as I would expect to sleep. Right, woke up the next morning pretty early, so maybe 5 or 6 hours later, and then it was like 7:30 a day and a half later. I go upstairs and Brian was already up there. And then Jeff shows up. We're sitting around a table and we're all starting to share our experiences a little bit here, a little bit there. We were all still trying to make sense of everything. I sat and spoke with Jonathan and Trevor and all the staff, and we just kept it cool. Then we started around just after lunchtime ish is when we started doing some meditating upstairs and breathing and a little yoga and relaxation. And I volunteered to be the first guy to do 5-MeO. Eventually, they called my name and I went upstairs and like, okay, here we go. I heard this one's fun. And Ruby's like, okay, Scott, here's the pipe. It looks kind of strange. Okay. Growing up in Oregon, I knew what marijuana was, obviously. And I was like, that's not a marijuana pipe. I didn't ever try any other drugs that you smoke out of the pipe. I was like, this is scary, I think. She goes, it's just special pipe for what we got to do. And then she shows me the 5-MeO and I watch her put a pipe. I'm like, pretty big package. I got a lot wrong. I got a lot going on up here. Probably going to need more than that. And I don't know if her and Jose knew I spoke Spanish, but she goes, what should I do? Should we give Scott more? He goes, let's stick with what we got right now. Stick to the protocol. So she's like, it's going to be fine. This is very powerful. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Okay. So once we light this, you're going to start inhaling and you're going to keep inhaling until you inhale all of it. When it quits giving off the smoke, you hold that in you. I'll count down 10 to 1. Don't let any of it out. Don't stop halfway in and blow some smoke out and breathe it back in because it's not going to be good. You got to inhale all of it, hold it for 10. I'll count down. When I get to 1, you lay it back and I'll pull your mask down. I said, okay, let's do it. Okay, here we go. She lights it. I inhale all of it. I'm holding it. She's counting down. I'm like, okay. As soon as I heard 1, I laid back. She pulled my mask down. As soon as I did that, I thought, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. Oh my God, I'm going to die. I can't breathe. I'm about to fucking die. And I'm so sad. Oh my God, I made the wrong decision. And I'm like, the only thing touching the ground was my elbow or my wrists and my feet. Like buying cockroach. I am not kidding. I couldn't say anything because I couldn't breathe. But my mind was immediately, you messed up. You're done. Yeah. It's going to kill you. Oh my God. Definitely have to die before you can be reborn. And I'm telling you, the vision immediately, as soon as I went, I couldn't breathe anymore, right? Because, and then I just stopped. And that's when I was like, I'm done. Boom! I immediately catapult. I look up. I think I've blasted up into something.
Yeah.
I look up and Jesus, I'm not kidding. A perfect rendition of this cloud of the shroud of Turin, but not a shadow of him. He's right up here and he looks at me and his mouth doesn't move, but I hear clear as day. Are you coming up here or what?
Wow.
But boom, and I shot like a rocket right into his chest. And then another like blast of energy. And I look around and I'm like, what is it? And I see arms and legs doing this. So the hands and the feet are facing up and they're doing this as far as I can see to my right and as far as I can see to the left and as far as I can see out in front of me. And then I felt like a sensation in my groin region, right? And I just remember looking like down at my groin and I was like, oh my God, I recognize that. And I look up and Jen is just filling me full of love. And boom, I come back. And I'm like, I cried. I cried so hard for like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Bawling my eyes out. And it wasn't because I missed my wife or I want to go back to certain events. It was if any of my buddies, if any of my 9 friends that killed themselves after going to war did this before they pulled the trigger, they would still be here. And I had no thought of that prior. I wasn't thinking about that before I went in there and did it. It was the first thought in my mind when I came back into that room. And I looked around after I got my shit together. I said, I want to do it again. Because Jeremy or Trevor said, hey, you guys are the first group that aren't going to get a handshake. You're going to get a full dose. And if you want to do another, which I highly recommend, you can do another. But you won't get a handshake like a partial dose because that wasn't working anymore. It was better to do it the other way. And so I literally looked at Jose and I said, I want to do it again. And Ruby was like, okay. And I said, and I want to do more. How long was I there for? Yeah, 20 minutes. And I said, make it last a little bit longer, please. And then
Wow.
give me just a little bit more. I did the same exact sequence to a T, exhaled. Oh God. Bleh, the same exact. I'm done. I'm gonna die again. And boom, I take off. Boom, there's Jesus. Are you coming or what? Are you
Oh my
coming?
gosh.
I saw everything, I heard everything, and I partook every single thing. The second trip was identical to the first trip. And I came back, cried my eyes out again,
Wow.
and I was shocked that I saw the exact same thing twice. I didn't know what to say.
Wow.
I was downstairs just sitting there at the table. Jonathan's in the couch room writing down notes, and I'm like, I got to talk to Trevor. I think Trevor was at the other house at that time because we had to move two other gentlemen over there because they had to do more. They had to get more over the counter supplements that they had in their system still. Kratom, I think is what it was. They had to flush them out more. So they flushed out one more day and then they were doing their journey adaptation. So Trevor was gone, but I went over to Jonathan. And I was like, I got to ask you some questions. And I remember talking to him about it. And he said, well, that does happen. It's not super common. It's probably going to show more later. Like things are going to come present themselves through your healing later, I believe. And I'm not kidding. Within weeks of coming home from this whole study, I'm driving down the road, still in this awe state, right?
Okay.
I haven't called any of my old pals in months. I pretty much just have written off that part of the life. And I'm figuring out nice ways to tell guys I'm not going out anymore, not drinking anymore. I don't care about former plans we had lined up, like, beach parties and stupid stuff, things that you thought really mattered that didn't. Just basic, just cleaning house essentially. And it's been probably a couple months since the last one, but early on, I was like every other week I'm driving or I'm on a run, I'm working out, and then boom, I'll feel a little like awakening moment. And something that I used to do that was not helpful, not good, so to speak, like, driving like an asshole because I drove so much in combat that I think I should drive like that back here in America. I used to have an excuse for everything. Well, you guys sent me to war 11 times. This is who I am now. Get over it. Like, I used to respond to things like that. Like, why are you speeding? Well, I need to get to where I'm going and I can drive like this because I'm really good at it. So don't worry about, I'm not going to wreck. Sounds pretty stupid, but I would just say it and go on with my day. Well, at this point, I felt this feeling like a boom, like a awe moment kind of thing. And then it's just registered in my brain. You're done doing that shit. It's stupid. Drive normal. And then I'm like, driving normal. So now I just immediately go 5 over, hit the speed control or cruise control. I've got my lane catch button hit, so I don't even have to touch steering wheel. And to me, it's amazing. Why didn't I think of this sooner?
Right,
The
right.
kids like it. Everyone's happier. The wife feels safer. Everybody's
Yeah.
happy. And I'm not a jerk. And man, I can keep doing this forever because I had such a long list of stupid shit that I was doing. But the point that I'm making is, and I spoke to Nate Morgan just a few days ago, who did a podcast with 343 recently. He's an ambassador with Americans for Ibogaine, great guy. And he's like, yes, same thing. Like walking to the grocery store, used to get cupcakes and snacks and this and that. He goes, now I'm getting fresh fruit, vegetables. And
Yep.
it changes the simplest thing or things. It just helps you make better choices for not only yourself, but every atom around you, right?
Yeah. And that stuff's not even on your radar. It just happens.
It just happened. And that's just one example. If I had my wife sitting here, she's like, oh yeah, used to walk around the house with the remote control everywhere I went. Didn't matter if I was upstairs in my restroom, I would have the remote control. Like just psychotic control freak measures, all gone. Like bomb could go off. I need the remote control at my possession. Things that didn't make any sense started to play out in a way that I could make sense in a way that would make me think, why have I been doing it like this for all this time
Right.
when they can be done like this and it's way better? You know, that it exudes happiness. It brings in a different flavor. People are happy. My kids are not, hesitant to come up to dad anymore. Dad! Now they're screaming halfway across the house because they know I'm not going to scream back. What are you doing? Yelling at me from where? Report downstairs, right? Like I used to be. And I'm like, yeah, sounds great. It sounds amazing. So most they're like, what are you talking about? But you
Right.
understand what I'm
Right. Right. Yeah.
the rigidity that I had established in my day-to-day routine to protect me from whatever I thought I was protecting myself from. I just did not want to be considered weak or not ready if something were to go down, like just hyper vigilant off the chart. It put me into a gray state. It took me to a place where I was kind of floating with whether or not I liked it or I needed to be more switched on, or because I was still fighting my shadow.
Sure.
And I had never read any of Jung theory at all. But for some reason, I was drawn straight to it when I decided to start writing more essays. And the first essay that I wrote was at the team house that we were all staying at on our way down to Mexico, where we would stay at to do the MERT for 6 weeks. They had a welcome like table signing in for their guests and stuff. And I left a one sheet, one full page. Basically, this is how this all started for me. And these are the immediate benefits at the end of this trifecta study. And this is how I am feeling right now as I am writing this to you guys. I hope it does the same for you. I'll be praying for you guys and sending you all the best energy I can muster. And, I got a lot of healing to do back at the house. You guys will too. Don't let the resentment get to you. You're going to feel, amazing, so on and so forth. A couple months goes by. There were some other retired, well-to-do patriots that would stop by that house that were friends with the owner to check on the guys that are there to see how they're doing, do a health and welfare kind of thing. Because you're not supposed to be partying and being an idiot. You're just
Right.
there to heal, and that is it. There's no Tinder, there's no this, there's no that. You're here to not fuck this up, be a good participant in the study, and so on and so forth. So we were holding each other accountable, and it was nice to see like the likes of Bob Bone and Scott Gunther, and Mr. Cannon, and some other the friends of theirs that lived in and around the area would stop by with tons of food and home good. It was just an amazing experience for that. Bob called me up. He's like, "Dude, or Scotty, I just want you to know that the letter you left for the guys that followed behind you has been read by everybody." And they all said they're glad they got to read that before they went down to Mexico because it helped answer a lot of the questions they had that they couldn't find the answers to.
Right.
So it relieved them for anxiety going into it. I was like, well, that's good. That's what the intent was. I'm glad. And he goes, you should write a book. And that was like the fourth person that had said you should write a book. I love storytelling and I love sharing the stories that help other people. So that's what led me to start researching deeper into this rabbit hole, which brought up Jung theory and a whole host of other philosophers and great minds. And I started understanding the more I read that we are all dealing with this, but we're in such a distraction state of a society. No one cares to listen to it. Your body's telling you there's a better way, but you're just blowing it off and clouding it with your likes on Facebook, your beers and your wine dates and your job. It could be a whole host of other things. Parenting could slide you out of that mindset. Could be a whole host of things. But not knowing about it is horrible for all of us. At
Right.
least we should know about it and have the ability to make the decision ourselves on whether or not we want to see if this is good for us, if this will help me, if this might be good for my husband or my wife or my parents. I'll go ahead and say it. 6, 8 months before I went down there, I believe it was, Lamar Odom was down there. And Lamar Odom, I grew up a big Trailblazer fan, and I love watching the greats. And he was one of those greats. But he went down a dark, dark place when he lost one of his children, which led to his public display of self destruction. I had not heard him speak on his own journey until after my journey. So time had passed, and he's sitting in this forum with other successful African American males in the industry of entertainment, sports, this and that, and they're talking as a group how to share their experience and their upbringing and whatnot with their youth to get them always to want to be men. You go back to being respectful of the women and being respectful to their families and their loved ones and getting out of that culture, right? That mindset that was force fed. And as they're talking about this stuff, I'm watching Lamar Odom on my TV. He's just sitting there nice and quiet. He's not laughing and high fiving and joking around, but the rest of them are, right? They're all just going along with the flow. And then eventually, the guy running the Nick Cannon, is that his name? He'll be the face for America's Got Talent, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
running the conversation. And he's like, okay, so Lamar Odom, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, like, so I heard you did this journey psychedelic healing thing. And he goes, yeah, I did. Yep. And he kind of just black and white. This is what was going on. He goes, so what'd you do when you got back? I talked to my mother. And what'd she say? And he's still stone, like just serious. He's like, she told me I needed to go apologize to every woman that I did wrong or whatever. And they're all like, whoa, yeah, mom's like that. And he goes, so I did. Oh, and now all of them are starting to get serious. Like,
Right,
Lamar ain't
right.
fucking around right now. And they're like, and he goes, like, well, how long did it take? He goes, almost a year. Oh, and they're all kind of high fiving and jiving. And he's like, he goes, I went and apologized to every one of them
Oh
and
my
made it
gosh.
right. And I came back and talked to my mom, and then I made the decision to go back to play one more year. He got in the best shape of his life, tried out, made it, became a starter, scores all of his stats were the best of his entire career. And then he retired after winning the championship and started 2 nonprofits in LA to help people get off addiction and get down to different clinics to go do the journey.
I
Isn't
had not
that
heard
amazing?
that. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. It's
yeah.
amazing to share that with people
Fan
because they all remember the Kardashians and his long
sure.
stay at the Bunny Ranch and all the crazy rumors that were floating around about the poor guy. But he is
Wow.
definitely um, a great spokesperson for that elite world.
Right.
Thinks there's nothing but just a lot of stuff, right? He said it in a way. He talks briefly about his visions that he saw his son. That was his son that had passed was 9, I believe. He goes, I got to talk to my boy. He's 16ish at the time. He had gotten older, and everybody's like, "What?" I mean, he's got an amazing testimony
I'll
too.
have to listen to that. I've not heard his story.
Yeah, if you have issues finding it, whatever, shoot me a text and I'll push it to
Okay.
you. So I use that as an example. I told everybody the first year that I was back, just watch John Ryan's interview with Trevor Millar, and that'll answer all your questions. So the word got out that Scotty had did this crazy psychedelic in Mexico, and he hasn't drunk an ounce of alcohol since. And nobody could believe it. I wasn't out anywhere, wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't trying to just be a introvert and completely change the person that I am, a big extrovert. But I was doing a lot of introspection. I would just sit and deep thought about the person I was before and how much better I feel after handling all the trauma and sadness and things that I compartmentalized since birth. It's like a whole new, it's like you're handed a new playbook with no plays in it, and you get to write the plays for the rest of your life. And you can make it however you want. You want to just focus on instruments and learn how to play every instrument on the planet and have no friends except instruments? So be it. You want to raise amazing kids that love dad and understand that there's a good man out there for me somewhere down the road? Because I have 4 daughters and I want to make sure they aren't picking the first version that they thought was what they should expect in a man. I want them to pick this version.
Right.
Someone who can step back and let other people lead and chime in with some mentorship when needed. Let others take the shot. Let others have the opportunity to shine. And that method in this household has changed everything. So they used to never touch the door. Like, dad's not awake. Don't wake him up. He never really sleeps. So when he sleeps, you gotta leave him alone. Blah, 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 blah. Now it's like, Daddy, are you awake? Yeah, I'm okay. Are you gonna come out? Yeah, let me just finish what I gotta finish here, get my slippers on, and I'll be right out. And then because my youngest, she wakes up before everybody. She's an early riser like I am. So 6:30, we're up. Savannah will sleep till 10, 11 if she can. And then she comes down and we're all hanging out. I used to just spend a couple hours at the gym in the morning, come home, feed everybody lunch, crack open a beer, load up my Jeep, go to the beach, sit there for 8 hours, drink more beer, pretend I'm gonna fix everything, and then come home shit faced and make a horrible dinner and watch UFC till the next rerun is too much and I call it a night. In a nutshell. Now the TV's not on a whole lot unless we're watching some fun kids stuff or God forbid I have to miss an episode of The Curse of Oak Island. I still watch UFC fights from time to time. I still love UFC and all that camaraderie that they show, but it's um it's not my go-to like it used to be. Now I'm
Right.
reaching for I love documentaries, but now I'm digging into our historical shift that I'm seeing we're going through right now as a world, not just focused in the United States. Everybody's waking up. Everybody's eating healthier.
Right.
Everybody's picking better choices. And not everybody's been on a journey, so to speak, but things are contagious and doing things that show positive results in a way that everyone can see. That's to me, that's what Ibogaine did. It made me so confident in doing the right thing all the time that I'm addicted to it. And I just do it. Like, for example, I'm in a rush. I'm running into Publix, but I see a woman 8 paces away or an old man that needs help. He's got a walker or somebody that's taking their time because they have to
Yeah.
medically. I'll stop. It could be 10 Mississippi. I don't care. I'll wait, let them in, hand them the basket, do whatever, and see them on every other aisle for the next 10 minutes. And I just made a nice friend and reinstate. I just helped them believe that, hey, the common good is still out there because it seemed like it was gone for so long
Well, I
without
think
going.
you're right. It changes the vibrational energy of everybody around you. Right.
So the Ibogaine definite set nervous system reset. It reorganized my trauma and it put things in it basically put my trauma on a whiteboard so that I can look at it and share it with whoever needs to listen to understand. I started opening up. It led to me opening up and sharing the things that were hurting me, which gave my wife and kids the ability to adjust little things to make those little stressors go away. Things I thought could not change were easily changeable, were just waiting for me to open my mouth and explain what was hurting me or whatever. I just didn't have the ability to communicate until this aha moment with some amazing root bark from the Tabernacle Iboga plant. I couldn't believe that things could be so that all my issues could be handled in such a way that was more effective than anything I'd ever tried prior to that. So who did I call? I pick up my phone and I call retired Sergeant Major friend of mine. He was tracking because I gave him a heads up before I went down. I said, I got invited to do the study. I'm going to do it. And I explained it to him. He's like, got it. Okay. Just be safe. Do all the research. Do everything I tell you to do. I'm like, I will. It had been about a month. He texts me on Signal. I text him back and I played him a little bit. Like, it's the worst thing I ever decided to do. Just call me and I'll explain. So my phone rings like 10 seconds later. Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, man, I'm amazing. The best thing I've ever done. Oh my God. And he's like, what, you asshole? Tell me. I told him all about it. He goes, are you still sober? Yes. Okay, I'm doing it. That's all it took.
And he did
So
it.
I I say, okay, I'll call you right back. I'm going to do a text intro with you and Mike. And I did a text real quick, called him right back. Like, he's going to get in touch with you. You're going to fill out these paperwork. They're going to vet you quickly. You're going to start doing this and this. And I told him the pipeline basically to follow. Fast forward, 5 months ish. He's down there. He texts me, hey, I'm here. I'm like, tell Trevor to take good care of you. And then he writes back, Trevor said hi. And then I don't hear from him for a few days. And the day before he flew back to Tampa, he called me from down there. You could tell immediately, super relaxed,
Yeah.
not a worry in the world. Everybody needs to come down here to do this. How are we going to put this together and brief everyone so they can understand it's worth it? And then it led to the next guy. So my first year back, I tell everyone it was my apology tour because I was apologizing for all the stupid shit that I was known for, like staying out to bars till they close, being the loud, crazy idiot, screaming all the war stuff you can imagine. Funny but rude, over the top, not necessary, but no one wants to tell me to shut up because they think I'll explode or whatever, just an idiot and in every way. And the numbers started reaching out. So I tried to I tried to figure out a way to share the journey with as many people as possible. So I spoke at my kids' Veterans Day special that they do. They have guest speakers and whatnot. And I spoke about the healing journey. I was like, anybody in this audience ever heard of a thing called Ibogaine? And I had the one hand raised. That was it. And there was about 100 people out there in front of the city hall. I said, let me tell you a little story about Ibogaine. And I really would love it if you guys could write this down or take a snapshot of what I'm saying and share it with someone out there that is struggling with post-traumatic stress. It could be from anything. Doesn't have to be from a war.
Right.
It could be a 30-year law enforcement or paramedic or firefighter dealing with it every single day in the same area that you live and take your kids to school in, which is probably harder than dealing with it like I had to over in the Middle East. At least I got to come back here and that got to stay there. Granted, I carried it with my attitude, I guarantee. After speaking at that, that's what happened. 4 or 5 different folks come walking up to say hello and introduce themselves, all former law enforcement. This
Beautiful.
was 2 years ago. And that's before, in my head, yeah, that was before I started hearing about some of these benevolent organizations in the United States offering the medicine for law enforcement and firefighters. And then it exploded. So it was good because I had no one to send them to, so to speak, because the SOC-F trifecta study was pretty compartmentalized to only soft guys that had to have all this, they wanted you to have a lot of deployments. They wanted you to be diagnosed with all the shit that they want to see if this helps. So it wasn't just a give to soft solely, but I didn't have anybody to refer them to, is what I was getting at. Until like maybe 6 months later, I started hearing about 343 with Miss Scuden. And I'm laughing. I'm like, dude, I just want to spread the word.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Because it
everyone
helps.
should have that opportunity, I feel like.
I do too. And I was really, really happy to read and listen to Governor Rick Perry, because I didn't know that he had gone down there. And next thing I know, I'm hearing him on Joe Rogan talking about I had onset dementia and I was forgetting things in the middle of speeches and speaking engagements. And my wife was getting really worried. I was getting very worried. His testimony is pretty awesome. To hear that he got 4% of his brain, of his gray matter back. He went down there after he did that same stuff, all the MRIs and everything in preparation. And then the post MRI showed he got 4% of the white matter back. Goes gray, you're not getting it back. As you age, it grays and we die, right? It reversed, according to what I dug up. I'm sure you know the exact answer. It's 4 to 6 years of your lifespan is brought back to you.
That's huge.
That's amazing.
And no pill can do that.
Nothing can do that.
Mhm.
You can take Adderall for months. It's not going to do that. You can, stem cell research says this and that. I mean, there's nothing that compares at all to the benefit of the medicine through Ibogaine. And I think that the bufo toad needs to be a national treasure. Leave their sanctuary alone so we can continue to heal through their beautiful venom. The way that Ambio structured that piece of it was perfect. They didn't let anything slip by.
Every step is well designed. All has a
Perfect.
purpose.
Everything has a purpose. Nothing was wasted.
And then you look back, you're like, that's why I did the sweat lodge. That's why we did yoga. That's why we did breath work. Like, oh,
Going back to the five, I have researched pretty deep into the connection between seeing two identical visions on 5-MeO DMT. What triggers those visions, how it all operates within its, I guess, the scientific side of the house. And I was going to share it with you, but I'll do it at a later time. I can just email you the topic that I brought up. And what it said is, or what I discovered is, hopefully you catch what I'm trying to say and you can speed me through it. But the hormone regulation and establishing new pathways for the front of my brain to speak to the back of my brain, leading up to going down and doing the medicine. From what I've been able to put together, it created the narrow pathway needed for the medicine to get into my brain and do what it needed to do on a level that allowed me to receive it, I guess, deep. The amount of information that was presented to me through this process and the way that it continued to pop these little wonderful moments of clarity that would immediately switch a bad habit off, never to come back to the surface and be repeated again. And I'm telling you, my wife, she's gone through ebb and flow for the past 3 years. Imagine being married to a war hero in her mind, right? One of the most decorated guys in the unit at my time during my heyday. Network is really good too. Their website's good. I love it. They're always sending out virtual courses you can do to reinstill or continue to reinforce your meditation skills that you've developed, or your yoga, or the semantics, where you're breathing and you're holding and then you flex all your muscles. You're laying on the floor while you're doing this. There's a person they have that's really good. My whole body starts to shake eventually, like 15, 20 minutes into it.
yeah.
It's like I'm shivering everywhere, but it's like it's releasing all this stored up tension, energy stuff. I feel amazing. I'm tired after, but I'm sweating. I'm like, man, I'm purging. Where something's coming out. Probably like what, tension and grief and all this stuff you compartmentalize in your body. It helps it get rid of it.
Right.
You know what I'm
Because
talking
every
about?
day we get something, you know?
Yeah. And so Vets Inc. has a really good post journey network that you have access to forever after that, right? And they also do a lot of, monthly calls for just the spouse. And that was when, my wife and I were sitting there. It was our first one. We were still in California. She came out to visit for a couple weeks and she goes, does anybody have any questions out there? And Jen's like, yeah, I do have one. Is there something in place for the spouse who has this man that used to break walls down and now he's crying in the middle of walking through the mall because he thinks about something? Where was this man before he went down and took the medicine. And without skipping a beat, Amber said, it's called resentment and it's completely normal. And you guys will all have resentment to deal with because that's what it is. They're going to come back different and better, but it's going to be upsetting for a while until you understand and can accept the fact it wasn't his choice per se to be the previous version that you fell in love with. Even though this one's better, this version is better. My wife had resentment
Sure.
for I don't know, a good year, and it was not easy, but I owed it. I kept telling myself, my family kept telling me that you owe her more than a year of the new you to accept the new. You owe her as much time as it took for you to get healed. You owe her back because she put up with your ridiculousness for all these years. And I was like, you're right, 100%. Please call her and tell her I love her, and I'm doing that. I still didn't have the communication figured out, right? I was super empathetic, and I knew I was a dirtbag, but I was really having a hard time expressing it in a forum with her in a way that would relieve her of her resentment. I just didn't know how, could not figure out how to do that. But eventually it started to work. And you know how? It's by communicating,
Communicate.
sending her chapters to read, getting her input, on some of the rabbit holes I was going down. She's like, I don't understand what this means. I'm like, it's the law of exposure. It's another thing that you have to go through to really pull those compartmentalized things you're doing to the open so you can heal and quit doing it.
I love it.
Really? I didn't know any of that. I'm like, well, I didn't either until last week when I started reading down the law of exposure.
So now she's on that journey with you.
I want her to do it so bad. The cost of secrecy, exposure as a stabilizing mechanism, the role of relationships, exposure without drama, sustaining change, physiological consequences of concealment. You can't do anything alone and expect a good outcome. And I just learned recently that it's a part of healing too. You gotta expose the shadow to the point where you acknowledge it and it makes it go back into a tertiary toolkit that you have to deal with trauma and stress. But it's not running the day-to-day show. The sympathetic, new, healed version of you is doing that with open doors and a clear conscience. You don't have a bunch of secrets. You're not trying to live 4 different versions of your life and spending half your energy covering your lies and the other half trying to raise a family and a wife.
Yeah.
Can't happen. It's impossible. There's no way for that to work. And if we get everybody to understand that,
it'd be wonderful.
It's so funny.
You'll have to share the book with me so I can share it with the audience.
The title is pretty awesome. My wife helped me come up with it. The Operator's Guide to the Universe.
Yes, I saw that on your Instagram. Yes.
It's got a good.
Yeah. That makes sense. I love that.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I deal with stress way better than I ever had before.
Yeah.
And I'm not really interested in any conversations that talk negatively about anything. All I want to do is think positive, reinforce that with positive actions and thoughts, and then promote that positive, good energy with those I spend my time with now. And it's not buddies, it's my kids and my wife.
So
does that make sense?
So true. Yeah, I think it was Ruby that said after I came out of DMT, she's like, how was it? I'm like, oh my gosh. She goes, yeah, you don't buy the bullshit anymore, do you? And I said,
exactly. That
yeah.
is so true. Yeah.
True. And then, yeah, the world, like, you don't know what you don't know because you don't have the tools until you do plant medicine. And then, yeah, you're never the same.
You're never the same.
You're never the same. It's a different vibration, different energy, it's a different world. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time.
Appreciate you listening to my story here. And I appreciate what you're doing.